Mark Zuckerberg, the architect of the social age. Part 1. Introduction. Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome back to English Parchment. We are absolutely thrilled to have you here today. If you want to master the English language while exploring the lives of the digital pioneers who built the modern world, you have found the perfect home. Today, we are looking at the life of a man who changed the way we talk, share, and connect. The founder of Meta, Mark Zuckerberg. Before we enter the virtual world with one of the youngest billionaires in history, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to English Parchment. Your support is what helps us grow this community and create these long, deep dive lessons for English learners all over the globe. Today we are using the digital fluency technique. 1. Tech vocabulary. We will use many Silicon Valley words. Words like algorithm, connectivity, privacy, innovation, and platform. 2. Contextual logic. Pay attention to how we describe the growth of a business using phrases like scaled up, pivoted to, and acquired. 3. The 2,200-word challenge. This is a 20-minute immersive experience. By staying until the end, you are training your brain to follow a complex, modern narrative in English. This is the ultimate fitness test for a B1 learner. How does a 19-year-old student, who is just trying to help his classmates find each other at university, become a man who controls the information of 3 billion people? He was a coding genius who turned down $1 billion from Yahoo when he was only 22. He was a man who changed his company's name to Meta because he believed the real world was no longer enough. But why is he often criticized by governments? And how is his vision of the metaverse and AI changing our lives right now in 2026? Stay with us until the end of this English Parchment special to find out why Mark Zuckerberg is the most powerful editor in history. Part 2. The Boy Who Coded ZuckNet. Our story begins in May 1984 in White Plains, New York. Mark was born into a comfortable, intellectual family. His father, Edward, was a dentist, and his mother, Karen, was a psychiatrist. Mark was a bright child who showed a natural talent for 2 things: computers and classical languages. While most children were playing video games, Mark was learning how to build them. When he was only 12, he used a programming language called C++ to create a messaging system for his father's dental office. He called it ZuckNet. It allowed the receptionist to tell his father when a patient had arrived without shouting across the hallway. This was 10 years before AOL Instant Messenger became popular. Mark's parents realized he was a prodigy, a word for a child with incredible talent. They hired a private tutor to teach him computer science. The tutor later said that it was hard to stay ahead of Mark because he learned so fast. Mark also loved Latin and Greek. He could quote lines from the Iliad by heart. This combination of logic, coding, and humanities, languages and stories, is the secret to his success. He didn't just understand machines, he understood how people want to communicate. Part 3. Harvard and the Facemash Scandal. In 2002, Mark entered Harvard University. He quickly became known as a programming legend on campus. He created a program called Course Match, which allowed students to see which classes their friends were taking. But his most famous and controversial creation was Facemash. One night in his dormitory, Mark hacked into the Harvard student databases and took the ID photos of his classmates. He created a website where people could vote on which student was hotter. It was a silly, immature project, but it was so popular that it crashed the Harvard servers in just a few hours. The university almost expelled him. But Facemash taught Mark a very important lesson. People are incredibly interested in other people. They want to see photos, they want to know who is friends with whom, and they want to rate things. He realized that the university needed a central digital directory, a Facebook. At the time, Harvard had many paper Facebooks, but nothing that connected the whole school online. Part 4. The Birth of the Facebook. On February 4th, 2004, from his small room in Kirkland House, Mark launched thefacebook.com. Within 24 hours, more than 1,000 students had signed up. Within a month, half of the Harvard undergraduate population had a profile. Mark didn't work alone. He was joined by his roommates, Eduardo Saverin, who provided the money, Dustin Moskovitz, and Chris Hughes. They quickly expanded the site to other elite universities like Yale, Columbia, and Stanford. But success brought drama. 3 Harvard seniors, the Winklevoss twins and Divya Narendra, accused Mark of stealing their idea. They claimed they had hired him to build a social site called Harvard Connection, and that he had used their ideas to build Facebook. This led to a massive legal battle that lasted for years. For us at English Parchment, this is a lesson in the gray area of innovation. Ideas are cheap, but execution, actually building the thing, is everything. Part 5. Silicon Valley and the move to move fast. In the summer of 2004, Mark and his team moved to Palo Alto, California. They lived in a rented house, worked all night, and lived on pizza and energy drinks. This was the startup life. It was there that Mark met Sean Parker, the co-founder of Napster. Parker became the company's first president and encouraged Mark to drop the there and just call it Facebook. Mark's philosophy was simple: move fast and break things. He believed that it was better to launch a feature that wasn't perfect and fix it later than to wait and be slow. In 2005, Facebook expanded to high schools and then to the general public. In 2006, when Mark was only 22, Yahoo offered to buy Facebook for $1 billion. Everyone told Mark to take the money. His investors were angry, and even some of his executives wanted to sell. But Mark said no. He believed that Facebook was worth much more than $1 billion. He wasn't interested in a big check. He was interested in a big mission. He wanted to connect the entire world. Part 6. The Newsfeed and Global Dominance. In 2006, Facebook introduced the newsfeed. Before this, you had to visit a friend's profile to see what they were doing. Now, all the updates from all your friends appeared in one single list. At first, users hated it. They felt it was a privacy nightmare. More than 700,000 people joined a group to protest the news feed. Mark didn't apologize for the feature. He explained it. He realized that the news feed was the engine of social media. It made the site addictive. People could spend hours scrolling through the lives of others. By 2012, Facebook had 1 billion users. Mark took the company public, selling shares on the stock market, and became one of the richest people in history. But he realized that the world was moving to mobile. He famously bought Instagram for $1 billion in 2012 and WhatsApp for $19 billion in 2014. He was building an ecosystem of apps. If you weren't on Facebook, you were on Instagram. If you weren't on Instagram, you were on WhatsApp. Mark Zuckerberg owned the conversation of the planet. Part 7. The Dark Side: Privacy and Responsibility. However, with great power comes great controversy. In the late 2010s, Facebook faced a series of crises. The most famous was the Cambridge Analytica scandal in 2018. It was revealed that a data company had taken the personal information of 87 million users without their permission to help political campaigns. Mark was called to testify before the US Congress. He sat in a suit and tie, answering difficult questions for hours. The world was starting to ask, is Facebook good for democracy? Is it good for our mental health? Mark had to change his role from a coder to a statesman. He began to invest billions of dollars in trust and safety. He hired thousands of people to find fake news and hate speech. But the problem was too big for one man or one company. The social age had created a polarized world where people only listened to those they agreed with. This is a vital lesson for us at English Parchment. Technology is a tool, but how we use it depends on our own human nature. Part 8. The Pivot to Meta, 2021. In October 2021, Mark Zuckerberg did something that shocked the world. He changed the name of his company from Facebook to Meta. He argued that the future of the internet was not on a 2D screen, but in the metaverse, a 3D virtual world where we could work, play, and socialize using virtual reality (VR) and augmented reality (AR) headsets. He bought the company Oculus and began spending $10 billion a year to build this new reality. Many critics laughed. They said the metaverse was dead or boring. They said the headsets were too heavy and the graphics were too simple. But Mark didn't care. He was playing the long game. He believed that just as we moved from desktop to mobile, we would eventually move from mobile to spatial computing. He wanted Meta to be the company that owned the glasses of the future. Part 9. Zuckerberg in 2026. The AI Revolution. Why are we discussing Mark Zuckerberg today, on April 20th, 2026? In 2026, the metaverse is still growing, but the hottest topic is artificial intelligence, AI. Over the last 2 years, Mark has pivoted the company again. Meta has released Llama, a powerful open-source AI model that developers all over the world are using. In 2026, Mark Zuckerberg is no longer the shy boy in a hoodie. He has become a more muscular, confident leader who is obsessed with the future of human-AI interaction. He believes that soon every person will have their own AI assistant on Meta's platforms. He is also a family man now. He and his wife, Priscilla Chan, have pledged to give away 99% of their wealth through the Chan-Zuckerberg Initiative to cure all diseases by the end of the century. He is trying to balance his role as a tech CEO with his role as a global philanthropist. He reminds us that even the most logical person in the world eventually wants to leave a human legacy. Part 10. Conclusion and your next step. Thank you so much for staying with us until the end of this 20-minute journey here on English Parchment. You have just completed a massive English workout. Listening to over 2,200 words of B1 level biography is a significant milestone in your fluency. You are building the digital vocabulary and the focus you need to understand the modern world. Mark Zuckerberg once said, "The biggest risk is not taking any risk. In a world that is changing really quickly, the only strategy that is guaranteed to fail is not taking risks." We believe that about your English studies. Take the risk of speaking, making mistakes, and learning. Now, I have a question for you. Mark Zuckerberg believes the future is in the metaverse and AI. Would you rather spend your time in a perfect virtual world, or do you think we should focus more on the real world? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. In English. It's the perfect way to practice your persuasive writing. If you found this story interesting, please like the video and subscribe to English Parchment. We are building a community of learners who love history and technology, and we want you to be a part of it. We will see you in the next video, where we will look at another legend who changed our world. Keep coding, keep reading, and keep learning with English Parchment. Goodbye for now.